Talk Radio.
KIDO Talk Radio presents.
There's nothing going on in this country in the politics that is American, period.
Every morning. Your community voice, Kevin Miller.
Kevin, you keep doing a great job. Listen to your show every morning, and I always will. Thank you for fighting a good fight.
On KIDO Talk Radio. 107.5 FM and 580 AM.
And speaking of fighting the good fight, our great friend Congressman Fulcher joining us. Congressman, good to have you with us.
Good morning, Kevin. Here's a D.C. weather report. It's clear, hot, and no signs of sanity today.
Well, and lots of humidity, I would imagine, sir.
A little bit of humidity as well. That's right. Yes. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. You made some news concerning guns and a gun tax. That was the front page of the Idaho Press recently. For those of us that don't know the details, what's going on?
Yeah, I haven't read that, but I have heard about it. And there's a part of that story that doesn't get to be exposed very well, at least from what I've seen, is that our friends on the other side of the aisle here in Washington, D.C. are proposing a 1,000% excise tax on semi-automatic weapons, which is rifles, pistols, whatever. Well, clearly the 1,000% is going to pretty much drive the sales of those guns to zero, which penalizes law-abiding owners, and accomplishes really part of what they want. They want to ban a lot of those things, and so this is another way to do it. This is very serious. It's not. Some people say, well, there's not really a chance of that. No, there's a very good chance of that happening. That is all but a done deal on a House side. That will go through probably not a straight-up vote, but it'll be very possibly signed off through what's called a reconciliation process with the Senate. So that's out there. It's very, very real. The excise tax is the vehicle currently used to finance a lot of hunter education and a lot of conservation projects, and those are revenues that are come off of those gun sales. Well, if you put 1,000% excise tax on it, then you're gonna squelch it. You're gonna choke it down to almost nothing. And so what the bill that I sponsored, I'm one of the sponsors, a large number of sponsors of what it does, it says, no, let's not do the 1,000% excise tax. Instead, let's shift that revenue source over to the energy sector. Let's pull it from energy. That supports our energy, which we should be focusing on anyway. And it doesn't penalize gun owners. And so it shifts that revenue source from gun taxes to energy. And it says, no thanks. We don't want the excise tax on semi-automatic weapons. So the people that I'm aware of who have raised issues with this, they don't want to talk about it. They don't return their phone calls. They don't seem to want to have any constructive dialogue. But hey, if there's a better solution out there, I'm open to it. But the existing source is very much at risk, Kevin.
Well, and let's continue on with that. Obviously, we've had these tragic school shootings, sir. You as a patriot, a family man, a businessman, a congressman, you're concerned about the future of our country. And, you know, as Buck Sexton points out, school shootings are statistically still very small, but every one of those matters. We want to keep everybody safe. But in light of what's happening, how concerned are you with this tax that the libs are proposing, that these folks are trying to take away our guns?
No, it's if they were really, really concerned about deaths, you got somewhere around 20,000 shooting deaths in the United States a year, the vast majority of which are suicides, vast majority. Now, that's a huge number. That's a shocking number. But compare and contrast that to 2021 figures on illegal fentanyl, and it's certainly jumped by now, 75,000 in 2021. It's from illegal fentanyl, and that's jumped dramatically. It's going to be a lot higher in 2022. So if there's that much concern, really, how come we haven't heard anything about that from this administration? Then, well, let's say, if it was really lives that were the concern, how many abortions happen in a given year? We're not hearing about those types of things. Instead, what we want to do, or what they want to do, is they want to strip law-abiding gun owners from their right to protect themselves. And you know what, Kevin? There is not one society in the history of the world that has lost their right to bear arms, their right to defend themselves, where it's worked out well for the people. Most recently, take a look at what's happened in Australia. I think it was 1998 that they lost the ability to keep and bear arms with very few exceptions. That society has been absolutely choked to death. What used to be a really pretty good free society in Australia has been choked down. They were the world leader on this whole pandemic thing, the restrictions, the government crackdowns, totally changed that society. For that and a whole host of other reasons, you don't want to ever let that happen. And so that's another purpose for this bill, frankly, is to not allow this excise tax on semi-automatic weapons.
And that's essentially what the liberals are plotting, I guess, for their defending the seats coming up in this November. It is devalue, denigrate the Supreme Court, and take guns. Obviously, they can't run on the president and their economy.
Good point. You know, I was talking to some members last night on this exact topic. We were on the floor last night, and something came up on the abortion situation and on the gun situation. And I asked another member, I said, that I happened to be sitting with, I said, can you imagine having the platform, basically the foundation of the campaigns of your party for this coming November being on abortion and stripping people of gun rights and squelching energy production? I said, holy cow, I can't even imagine that being the case. I mean, I know Idaho is different. It's better. It's much unique, but I can't, it's difficult for me to grasp any place in the United States of America that warmly embraces that type of mentality. And so it just convinces me, Kevin, there's going to be significant turnover in November. It's in the United States Congress, and frankly, it just can't happen soon enough.
Well, speaking of a couple other things, obviously we've got these commissions going on, the hearings on daytime and prime time. How much does it hurt the process that you don't have bipartisan support? You don't have an objective, a very close friend of yours, Jim Jordan, or someone else on this committee that is very, very provocative and very, very one-sided, sir?
You get exactly what you would anticipate on a one-sided commission. Trials in the United States, the judicial branch has a trial with both sides represented for a reason, and that's to exhibit and put on display for a jury, or a judge, both sides of an argument, both sides of the situation, to try to expose the truth. When you deliberately, either side, by the way, if either side deliberately shuts down the other and refuses to expose that, no matter what, you're going to get a tainted picture of what actually took place. I'm not saying there's not something that's got some truth in there, but there's always two sides to a story. And so this is the only commission that I'm aware of that announced their results when they began the commission. And they say, this is how we're going to demonstrate that these results are true. Well, so much for authenticity. And we know for a fact now that whatever they come out with will just be one-sided. And it's unfortunate. I think the Republicans are going to have a opportunity to do their side, but frankly, that's going to be one-sided the other way. So it's I don't have a whole lot of faith in this commission.
Well, and again, let's get to the crux of the issue. You were there at the Capitol during the day when the people broke in and such, and you've described what happened in vivid detail, and obviously no one wants that ever to happen again. Okay, we're going to put the congressman on hold, Bo. Thank you for being there. Little technical issues here, but we will get his answer to that question in a minute. You're listening to Kevin Miller Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. We're talking to Congressman could be governor one day, Russ Fulcher, talking to us about this excise tax that the libs are trying to put on guns, essentially trying to tax you out of being able to purchase weapons. We have the congressman back. Again, we lost him for a moment, but Congressman, right where we lost you, you were at the Capitol. You've told us what happened. Obviously, no one wants this ever to happen again.
Yeah, forgive me, but technology went bad. My earpieces went dead. So, yes, I was there firsthand. I could give a explanation, excuse me, of exactly what took place. And it should never happen again. There's just no question about that. But once again, the commission's own report. I share a whole host of faults on the other side, just from my own personal observation. But none of those are being exposed. Off the topic, Kevin, or off the agenda, not to be allowed on the agenda, is any criticism of Nancy Pelosi and some of the action she took or did not take. For example, allowing the National Guard to come in, leaving way early, which I always wondered about that. She was gone a good hour before the rest of the other report there. So many questions. That you said, I cannot say that leadership is talking about.
All right, Bo, we're going to see if you can work some magic there. And again, it's the limits of modern technology here today. We want to make sure that you can hear the congressman. Obviously, lots of great information coming from our friend, and he is our friend, Congressman Fulcher. It's always a privilege to have Congressman Fulcher on and our lawmakers, and we'll work hard to get some more on here on KIDO Talk Radio. Coming up, Joe Biden got a little upset, got a little angry at a reporter. I love this. Sometimes the reporters get a little snarky, and it is entertaining. Let's take a listen.
Mr. President, what's your message to Democrats who don't want you to run again?
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry when I hear this. Hey, Joe Biden, people don't like you.
They want me to run.
2/3 say they don't.
The poll.
2/3 say they don't. Oh, well. Anyway, let's go back to Congressman Fulcher. All right, Congressman, one more time. We got a little of Nancy Pelosi left, and you bring up a very good point that the commission hasn't brought up. You know, and we have reports from the sergeant at arms and others, they warned the speaker, they warned everybody and saying, hey, bad things could be happening here. We've got these folks that are all fired up, and yet the speaker is either incompetent or complicit on what happened.
Yeah, and I don't know which. And but the point is that she's not being investigated at all. Nobody's asking those questions, and that's if you want to know why she would not allow Jim Jordan or Jim Banks on that committee, which was the ones that were appointed by the Republican side. Well, there's a great reason right there, because that's one of the first places they're going to go, because they were sitting just a few feet from me when this went down. They know what happened. And those questions should be fair game, but they are not in this particular commission.
Congressman Fulcher, what do you make of the president? We were playing a clip there. He's getting a little snippy about his chances for re-election. He is in Saudi Arabia, a nation state that he called a pariah. The Washington folks and everybody should be offended at what happened to that Washington Post columnist. And yet now Joe Biden is there on bended knee begging the Saudis for more oil.
In an alternate universe, Kevin, he's not only is he begging for oil after shutting down our own production, but he's delusional in believing that 90-some% of the Democrats want him back in for another term. And honestly, I don't know where that delusion comes from. I don't know if it really is internal or if this is the coaching that he's getting. Probably a combination of both. But it just defies common sense. The very first thing you do, or among the first things you do when you take office, is you shut down drilling on any kind of federal land. You choke or encourage the choking of financing through the Treasury. You shut off the Keystone Pipeline. Basically, you threaten our domestic energy production industry. You put a huge chilling effect on that. Then you act surprised that gas jumps to $6-7 a gallon. It's ridiculous. And then make excuses, a whole series of them. Oh, wait a minute, it was Putin. Yeah, that's right. No, wait a minute, it's the gas station owners. Oh, no, it's the oil companies. That's really the cause of all this. And then, so I'm going to solve this. I'm going to export a bunch of our reserves, which he did. And then I'm going to go to Saudi Arabia. I'm going to beg them to produce some more, which, by the way, they don't like us all that much either. So let's pay our enemies. Let's pay more at the pump. And make a whole bunch of excuses as to what went wrong when the real cause is looking back at Joe Biden in the mirror.
Indeed, our great friend Congressman Fulcher joining us. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Congressman, we take a look at the border with the recent Supreme Court decision allowing the Biden administration to put an end to the President Trump policy of stay in Mexico. What does that mean? And obviously, you've been to the border. You are very adamant about that. Your thoughts on the porous border that keeps on giving, I guess.
Well, Kevin, unless you really have been there, and I have, it's really difficult to grasp. The news accounts do not do it justice at all. And it's painful, but I try to watch a number of the different news channels. The one probably that's the closest is either Newsmax or Fox that actually have some degree of coverage on it, but that doesn't even come close to the reality of it. Once you're there, once you're on the board, this is a flood, and I do mean a flood of non-citizens pouring into the country unchecked. I mean, you just have to imagine literally thousands of people a day pouring into the United States unchecked. And when we do have the ability to stop or pause some of them, we're finding that they're not just coming from Mexico, Honduras, South America, Central America. They're coming from China. They're coming from Syria. They're coming from Iran or Iraq. And, you and I have talked about this before. I'm not a real geographic expert, but I know that's not the most direct route from those countries. So you have to ask yourself the question. Then we see the fallout from illegal drug deaths and human trafficking, sex trafficking. I mean, this truly is a disaster, and it's being condoned. The president is not enforcing a federal law, and so this truly is a devastating problem. And when we have a conversation, Kevin, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, we're going to look back on this time with all of the turmoil going through. And I predict we'll be looking back and say, of all of the bad decisions, of all the bad things happening, this probably had the longest term effect on America, or will be having the most negative effect on America of all of them.
Congressman Russ Fulcher joining us. Always a pleasure to have you with us. And Congressman, a big event coming up this weekend in Twin Falls. They've got the state convention, lot going on. What do you make of the state of the party? And even though, unfortunately, we're the victims of our success, we keep trying to get the president here. He went to Alaska. I'm documenting this. He went to Wyoming. Hopefully he'll come here. But the Republican Party in Idaho, we may not be perfect, but we're a lot better than, let's say, the Republican Party in other states.
That's true. And there's always going to be friction within the Republican Party because by nature, Republicans are independent. They are self-thinkers. They're self-sufficient. And when you're that way and you're wired that way, you're going to have differences of opinion and you're going to express it. And that's something we should expect and consider as a strength. We're not sheep. We don't follow each other over the cliff. We don't do what someone else tells us to do just automatically. And so you're going to see those sparks flying. But in the overall scheme of things, although it's unpleasant, it's better than the alternative. And so we're going to demonstrate some of that. I hope to be able to get there. We're voting on Friday. I'm hoping to be able to get there on Saturday. But the party is strong. We still have and will grow the Republican influence within the state of Idaho, and that needs to be managed. It needs to be driven. It needs to be organized because, as you know, there's so many new people coming into our state. We want to maintain that leverage, that control, that influence. And so that's part of what this weekend is about, Kevin, and I'm going to try to get there if I possibly can.
Congressman Fulcher, stay safe. We always appreciate you. Thank you for joining us today, sir.
Sorry for the technical difficulties. That won't happen next time.
Sir, you're worth it. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Congressman Fulcher, we'll get your reaction next. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Don't forget